Hi, this is Liqian Ren, Director of Modern Alpha Wisdom Tree ETFs. Welcome to China of Tomorrow podcast series, where we navigate China, India, Japan, and the broader emerging markets with members of Wisdom Tree and other industry leaders. This is Liqian on October 26, 2023. We're restarting with a slight change of format for our podcast. We will update more frequently, hopefully weekly, but with a shorter commentary of what's happening in China and the Asia Pacific region. As many of my listeners who also follow me on Twitter know, I went on a 9-city, 7-week trip in China in July and August. It's mainly a personal trip after 4 years of not visiting family due to COVID. The main city I visited is a fifth-tier small town in Zhejiang province where I grew up. It's about 4-hour drive from Shanghai and one of many China's growth engines, towns and cities. On this episode, I'll quickly touch on China's housing market, U.S.-China relationship, and the general local sentiment and what the Chinese government is doing. There's a sense that China is entering an age of lowered expectations on everything from domestic growth to traveling abroad. And indeed, that's a sentiment I observe as well. Overall, one can see and feel the impact of the slower economy on the trip. In particular, the real estate slowdown is having significant impact on investment, traditional driver of Chinese growth. On top of that, local governments are also short of money due to reduced revenue from land sales, which is tied to the real estate slowdown. So even in a rich province like Zhejiang, Zhejiang obviously is quite important politically in China as well, as President Xi was the party secretary of Zhejiang before he moved into higher positions in Shanghai and in Beijing. So if Zhejiang is feeling the coolness, then the poorer provinces are facing significantly more severe physical crunches. However, this year's summer travel also has a benefit of COVID reopening. Almost everywhere we go, I took both kids on the trip. The hotels and restaurants are doing good business, particularly in larger cities like Beijing and Shanghai and Hangzhou. The general sentiment is economic slowing is causing people to delay, buying houses. Young people are delaying marriage and having children. People have saving more money. China's M2, money growth has continued to increase. And because people was in a bit of wait and see mode, because in the older days, people put money in real estate, in investment, but now people are definitely on more wait and see. So I think the general sentiment in China is that it's not really despair or significant gloominess, because the growth, regardless how people may disagree whether it's officially 5% or it's 2 or 3%, but it's still positive growth. And also the sentiment is more on preparing to endure the slowdown for the next couple years. There is a Chinese word called "ao," which can be roughly translated as endure, that I heard constantly while there. And many people see the real estate slowdown actually as necessary for China's future growth. So the idea that the top leadership is being blamed for the slowdown is actually, I think it's much more bigger city intellectual so-called discussions. If you go to much smaller cities, people blame the real estate slowdown, but it's not necessarily blaming the party for it. And for COVID, people definitely feel that China could have opened a little bit earlier, but
it's not that the people are blaming, the government significantly for this. So I think that the nuance is very different. If you talk to professors, and then they tend to blame the government significantly more, if more so than if you just talk to ordinary people. The party is still very strongly supported. So I think that is really the important nuance. We do see green shoots in some Chinese industries like electric vehicle and related technology, and money flowing into high-end manufacturing and biotech, which the government is trying to encourage. But so far, these green shoots are not enough to counter the real estate slowdown. Thus, we expect, challenging growth environment for China next year as well. But all growth is relative. So compared to the rest of the world, China is still doing, I think, at least average or slightly better. Sentiment-wise, given the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East, many Chinese actually felt a sense of relief. Understandably, many still view Taiwan's Strait as the next hot button geographical location, but the imminent danger is still very low. Many locals don't see significant war coming unless Taiwan formally change its name, which currently is still called Republic of China. U.S. and Chinese leaders are also expected to meet during November's APEC meeting, which will be in the U.S. The headlines between U.S. and China generally will be positive, which doesn't mean that there will be no negatives. There will be always negatives in the next years between U.S. and China. But you will see, several positive news about Governor of California visiting China. China is buying billions of agricultural products from U.S. again since 2017. If people remember, that's when the trade war really started this downward trajectory. Taiwan is having a presidential election on January 13th, 2024. So every involved party is on the wait and see mode on what Taiwanese people really want. If the current Taiwanese parties that controls both the presidency and the Congress. So I think, even with this kind of control, they are not talking about, significant formal declaration of change of the name or constitution. Then it's hard to imagine the next if there's a change of parties, the risk can only go down from here. Obviously, the election can also bring, keep the existing party, which is much more pro-independence in power. So everybody is on the wait and see mode. I wrote 2 blogs on China, and you can find out on our website. So what is the Chinese government doing in terms of and what's the impact of Chinese currency? First, the government is doing quite a lot of things, from lowering mortgage rates to issuing more bonds to help local government to avoid the worst. But I think here it's important to keep some perspective. First, China is not going to do the US style stimulus for really 2 reasons. In the blog, and I mentioned a little bit more, but essentially China's debt is already high and room for stimulus is significantly smaller. Because US is exceptional. There's only one reserve currency in this world, that's dollar. So for US to stimulate the economy, part of the burden is actually, the inflating away of the debt is going to be shared by the rest of the world. But China, like any other country, doesn't have that leverage. And if you look at Japan and Europe, if you do significant stimulus, you're going to pay one way or the other. Inflation is very high in Japan and Europe, and the growth in Europe is really subpar. So I think even with US style stimulus in China, the effect, it needs to be benchmarked against Japan and Europe, not US. So I think a lot of times, obviously, people like to compare China against US, but it's sometimes it's people forget, US is very exceptional in current geopolitical environment. Now, on Chinese currency, I have to admit, I'm not expert on macro currency linkage in China. I've tried to, research and read up as much as possible. China is still net positive in export, so it's hard to have a balance of payment crisis. I don't think that is high probability. And also PBOC, the Chinese Central Bank, has a lot of tools to manage a gradual depreciation or appreciation. So we should not expect a big crisis. On the other hand, US interest is very high. So we have a currency model, but that's based on technical factors like momentum or cross equity, cross asset flow. That's our technical factors are pointing toward hedging for Chinese currency to reduce risk. So we hope you like this shorter format and feel free to give us feedback. We look forward to continue bringing guests on top of shorter commentary. Please suggest guests you like to hear as well. We welcome questions on Twitter, which could help us understand China and the Asia Pacific region better. Many times, engagement with people on Twitter has helped myself better because, I can be wrong many times too. So please, we can also we are continuing to write blogs, and that let us know what kind of topics that you have interest. You can also subscribe to the podcast. Check out the Wisdom Tree's YouTube channel. So thank you very much, and hopefully next week I'll give another quick commentary. Thank you.